Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. This is a video I'm very excited to put out, not because it's anything new. I do concert reviews all the time, but it's because it was a very special show at the Harvester Performance Center in Rocky Mount, Virginia on May the 7th, 2026, which was last night at the time of filming this, the afternoon of May the 8th. Now, the Wallflowers are a band led by Mr. Jakob Dylan, the son of one Robert Zimmerman, who has been at it now for 30 plus years. And they were doing something special. They were going to go on tour in support of the 30th anniversary of their breakthrough album, Bringing Down the Horse. Now, this is the CD. I don't have it on vinyl. One of these days I'll get it on vinyl. But this is the big album. This is the album that broke them. This is the album that has songs that you would know, including their biggest hit, the album opener, One Headlight. You've also got songs like The Difference, Three Marlenas, God Don't Make Lonely Girls, Sixth Avenue Heartache. Just a fantastic record. I know I've talked about this album on my channel before. There's Jakob. Jakob is 56 years old, and he's celebrating this album that came out when he was 26, which is insane that he was that young when this album came out. But the purpose of the tour was to perform the album in its entirety, start to finish. What made the tour even cooler was that he also was performing this album. This is Long After Dark by Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, album from 1982. It's not celebrating an anniversary. Nothing about it is being remembered at the moment. It's just one of his favorite albums, and he wanted to perform it. This is an underrated, understated Tom Petty album. It has the big hit, You Got Lucky, on it, and then the minor hit, Change of Heart, both of which had videos that played on MTV. The You Got Lucky one is especially cool if you've never seen it. Very Mad Max-esque, kind of Petty's real first foray into the production and sounds of the 1980s. But it's still fairly early in that you would have the follow-up Southern accents, which really kind of goes all in with the 80s sound, produced by Dave Stewart. Now, Jakob, I say Dylan in this episode, I'm referring to Jakob. Dylan had performed this set list a few months ago at a special event out in California, I believe, and did these on like 2 or 3 shows. And I thought, man, how cool would it have been to go to that show? And like when he put it on his social media for the first time, I was like, ooh, hopefully this is going on tour. And then sure enough, it was just a couple of shows on the West Coast. And I just said, that must have just been a special thing. Very cool. I'll look up videos. And I should say, I've seen Jakob and the Wallflowers. This is now my 3rd time. And every time that I've seen them, they've done some sort of Tom Petty tribute. I've seen them do Refugee. I've seen them do American Girl. I've seen them do The Waiting. He also is known to cover other artists. I've seen him cover Cat Stevens. I've seen him cover Van Morrison. So he is very sure to discuss and sing and remember his roots, remember what was playing on his record player as a kid. And obviously his dad was a Wilbury with Tom Petty. So there's a very thick thread that runs with the Dylan family and Tom Petty. So it was really a match made in heaven. I mean, it makes perfect sense that Jakob was going to perform a bunch of Tom Petty songs. He did not disappoint. It was a sold-out show. Again, The Harvester, I've talked about it before. In terms of videos on my channel that I've talked about, I've seen the Wood Brothers there. Some of this goes back years. I saw Christopher Cross there. I know I did a review of him on my channel. I've seen tons of artists there. Jimmy Fortune, Charlie Daniels, Oliver Wood solo, Emmylou Harris. I've seen Don McLean there. I've seen the Milk Carton Kids. I've seen Sister Hazel. I've seen Los Lobos. I've seen a lot of artists. It gets a lot of names. And it's a small place. It's a small town. Rocky Mount is a very small town in Franklin County, Virginia. So for me, originally being kind of from that area, from the central southwest part of Virginia, now where I am, it took me about 2.5 hours to get there. But I went with my mom. She's a big Tom Petty fan, and I was telling her that the last time I saw Jacob, I wish that she had been there with me because he does so much of the music that we both like and bond over. So we both bought a ticket for the show, had great seats. We were on the side of the stage with essentially our row. It was just two seats. Like, it was just the two of us on the side that is been known to be like a standing room section. But there was a spot with two seats there. And then you have the main section, and then you have the other side, which is a little bit of standing room. But it was a sold out show, holds about 400, 420, 450 people there. So people wanted to see the show, and I think there were equal Wallflowers fans. I think there were equal Tom Petty fans. The lady in front of us said that she saw the Wallflowers 30 years ago, so she was an original fan of Jacob, and she was dancing and having a really good time. And what I will say is the crowd was a little quiet, which is good, as in, you know, at least in our section, you weren't getting a lot of talking or background noise. But I could tell there were a few times where Jacob really wanted the crowd to wake up a little bit. He kind of said something about, you know, love to see you standing up or something, and nobody was standing up. And I know that the show before, they were playing at the Orange Peel in Asheville, and that's a general admission standing room location. So different vibe. For the Harvester, you have seats that you could put your feet up on the stage. It's not allowed, but you're that close to the stage if you get front row. And I've been front row there before a few times. And he was really, you know, engaging. Jacob is not like Bob in the sense that he does not mind you taking his photo. He will acknowledge you in the crowd. He went up to one woman or somebody in the front row and gave him kind of a knuck, like, you know, knuckle touch. He signed somebody's sign that they had. And so he's engaged with the audience. He knows that the audience is the bread and butter. Like, they're the reason that he's able to do that. And Jacob is not like his dad in the sense that he doesn't have this massive catalog of songs, and songs that were, you know, generationally respected. His big hit was One Headlight, which again is the opening song on Bringing Down the Horse. And he went through the album from the top to the bottom. I've seen other shows where an artist is doing a record in its entirety, and they'll change the sequence to fit a live crowd. I saw Marty Stewart with Roger McGuinn and Chris Hillman back in 2018 celebrating the 50th anniversary of Sweetheart of the Rodeo. They played the whole record, but in a different sequence. And I've seen Stevie Wonder do Songs in the Key of Life. I think he changed that up a little bit. So I've seen artists do it. I've also seen people do it, you know, start to finish. I saw Brian Wilson do Pet Sounds. So it's an interesting experience to see a record live, especially when artists, you know, adjust maybe a lyric or two, or they change something up. Jacob pretty much stayed true to the arrangements of the record. And, you know, listening to him and closing your eyes, I heard his dad several times in his voice come out, especially like Bob in the early 80s, mid 80s. That came out a lot in his singing and in his speaking voice. So that was really cool. And again, to hear those songs, you know, to open with One Headlight. And he kind of mentioned to the crowd, he said, you know, 30 years ago, we weren't thinking about playing this album live. And he said, we thought it was a good idea, you know, to do this. But obviously, side A of Bringing Down the Horse is that's where the money is. That's where the songs are that everybody knows, the casual fan knows those songs. And I'm not a diehard Wallflowers fan. I mean, I only own 2 of their records. I've heard other records, but I only have 2. They're harder to find, even on CD. They're not really in print. You can still get this one, Bringing Down the Horse, at Barnes & Noble for $5 or $6. But he did that full album, no set break. Then started with this song, with this album, A One Story Town. He pretty much said, you know, he's like, if you're keeping score, we just finished the first record. Now we're going to start the second record. And then he was like, the first record is one of my favorite records. And that got a good laugh. And he said, but this is also one of my favorite records. So he did that. One Story Town, went right into You Got Lucky. But hearing songs like Deliver Me and Finding Out, and then straight into Darkness, which he said some days is like a top 1 or 2 Tom Petty song ever for him. Hearing those songs live, songs that I would never hear live, even when Petty was alive, he wouldn't have played, Deliver Me or A Wasted Life or songs like that. So hearing those live was really cool. His guitar player had the Mike Campbell guitar tone down. He had one of his other guys play Rickenbacker on a few songs, Rickenbacker guitar. Fantastic. And I should also say the Wallflowers now is essentially just Jakob and a bunch of guys that have been playing with him. It's none of the original guys from the record, but again, it was always Jakob's project. And what's kind of the cool connecting point is that Mike Campbell plays on this record on a song. So he had that Tom Petty connection even 30 years ago. But it was fantastic. Again, the songs like I mentioned, God Don't Make Lonely Girls was a highlight for the deeper cuts on here. Josephine was beautiful. Three Marlenas is always great. I've heard him do, the big songs every time I've seen him. And that's the thing. He's going to give you, you're always going to hear One Headlight. You're always going to hear the difference. You're going to hear Three Marlenas. But then hearing everything else in sequence was fantastic. Now, I should say there was a point, and my mom and I were a little perturbed with this because it's nothing on the Harvester end. But there, I think as a general rule, cell phones are not allowed unless it's announced. Now, we got there about 15 minutes before the opener, and we didn't see any kind of announcement or anything about cell phones. And I've been there before, again, where it's been announced, no video, no phones, whatever. But it seemed like after the first song, there was really a crackdown on phones and filming and things, and it was a little distracting. I mean, obviously phones and that kind of thing can be distracting at a show, but some of the security, because it's such a small venue, are shining flashlights, to try to get your attention. And when you're the artist and you see something like that, it can be distracting. Again, I'm not blaming the venue or anything like that. I'm just saying as a rule. And finally, Jakob said, he's like, I don't really care if you take my photo. And then he kind of posed. And so then at that point, I think they kind of let up a little bit and everybody was filming. But so I appreciate security doing their job. I guess there was just some miscommunication with the artist and the venue. But anyway, I can't recommend the Harvester enough. I love it. And actually, I worked there as a volunteer blogger for a year. So I was able to see a lot of shows for free, and that was really fun just out of college about 9 years ago. But the biggest issue, first, there was also a couple that came in, and he was on song 3 at this point of the first record, and they were obviously asking for One Headlight, and he said, we already played it. And then he kind of made a joking announcement saying, we're playing this album from start to finish. So that's just how it's going to go. So it was advertised specifically as we're playing this album start to finish, and that's how we're going to do it. So if you walk in there and he's not singing One Headlight, you should know, well, that's the first song on the record. That means it's already done. I felt bad for them because I know what it's like to be late for a show. I've missed the first song of a couple different shows. It's the worst feeling. So I get it. It's the big hit, but you shouldn't ask for it when you know that it's already been played. There was also a good opener, Tyler Ramsey, who was a former member of the group Band of Horses. He was in the band for 10 years, and he played a solo set, singer-songwriter currently out of Asheville, North Carolina. He was cool. He had this very, very soft set, and he kind of joked. He's like, I'm not going to rock. He's like, the Wallflowers are going to rock. He's like, I'm kind of easing you into the Wallflowers. He did a cool cover of Back on the Chain Gang by the Pretenders. But he mentioned, he said, yeah, I've been to the Harvester before. I opened for Mavis Staples. Now, anybody that knows anything about music knows Mavis Staples. And there was a lady, he was telling the story about, he opened for Mavis, and they went downstairs after the show, and she was like, hey, let's get a picture together. And this guy's, 6'8", and Mavis is, 5 foot or less. And he said, so it was a funny photo, and the crowd got a good laugh. Well, this lady in the front, she kind of made a reference. She said, and she was being completely serious. She said, is Mavis Staples your wife? She had no idea who Mavis Staples was. And he handled it very professionally, saying, You should check her out. He's like, Mavis Staples, legendary soul singer, gospel singer, staple singers, pop staples. She was in The Last Waltz. Completely over the lady's head. It's a sad state of affairs when you don't know who Mavis Staples is. I'll leave it at that. I'll leave it at that. But overall, fantastic show. I really, really enjoyed it. I love seeing Jakob play. I try to get a set list. They said they weren't giving them out. I know sometimes artists will sign them and sell them for, as charity or something like that. So I didn't question it, but very, very good show. Harvester always does a good job hosting these shows. Sound was good. Hearing those Tom Petty songs, hearing the Bringing Down the Horse deep cuts, it's fantastic. Can't recommend it enough. If he's coming to your town, go see Jakob Dylan and the Wallflowers. So that does it for me, everybody. Oh, and I should also say thanks to my mom for joining me because she really enjoyed it. She had a great time. And I love seeing shows with her. So if you can do it, if you have parents that like good music, do it with them because it's worth it. So that's all I'll say. Thank you all so much. Go check out these albums if you don't know them. They're fantastic, great rock records. You'll love it. All right. See y'all in the next one. Bye now.